Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Matt Tebow Stacked, and right now I'm joined by the head coach of Evil Geniuses, Peter Dunn, coming off of a pretty heartbreaking loss to TSM and elimination from the spring split playoffs. Excuse me. How are you doing given the circumstances?
Well, today was a rough game for sure. A rough day. I felt that we were pretty competitive today, which, as a sixth seed, I guess is something to look forward to. But to be honest, we've had a long season. The regular season, maybe EG's performances can be excused because we had as a coaching staff, I was here only very late in the season, and with 3 scrim days a week, we don't have that much time to fix things quickly. But definitely with a 2 week break, I expected us to do better coming into this series, and I can't help but be disappointed. In a sense, it's a bit of a relief because there's no championship points this season, so the performance today doesn't have a knock-on effect going into next year, going into next split. But definitely, this is a series that we felt that we had a good chance to win, and definitely having seen the games play out, definitely those third and fourth games. I'm going to have nightmares about this in the coming days. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about the series overall? You talked a little bit about game three and four, so let's talk a little bit about more of those in depth. We were talking a little
Mhm.
bit about EG's competitiveness and how it was just a few moments. This was before the interview as well. These few
Sure.
moments that turned the tide of these games. Would you mind going in depth a little bit more about that?
Sure, I can talk a bit about it. I mean, basically, what happened this series is we had a lot of really cool counter picks. You saw maybe Nico, but we had things like Annie, things like Wukong prepared today. We were definitely up in the cheese coming into the series. They never picked Lucian. It was a bit sad. But the first series, kind of, they got us a bit. We knew that they were going to play Nocturne because Huni's basically only been playing Nocturne in solo queue for this week. But we didn't quite anticipate the Nocturne Rel, the deadliness of the Nocturne Rel combo, because you can't see the what's it called,
The
the
tether.
line
You
between
wait. You can't see
you
the tether in Nocturne
you,
R.
you can't see the tether in Nocturne unless you're within range.
Okay.
Okay, because Nocturne covers it, so you can't see most
True.
unless you're right next to it. So they kind of pulled that out game one, and we were like, okay, we know they're going to play Nocturne. We've got a good pick into Nocturne. Our comp's pretty good into Nocturne. We're going to be fine. And then they had a fight on, I think, second or third Drake where they pulled out the Nocturne rail combo, and he stunned both. He stunned both of our carries, and we were like, holy moly, what happened there? So we adjusted going in later on. I think rail was there mainly to deny that. If there'd been a game five, if they started picking first pick Rel, maybe we'd have adapted a bit. But we figured that we knew they wanted Udyr, so we kept giving them Udyr because we anticipated we needed to take the Rel away. So that was our adaptation, and I think you saw that being pretty effective in second, third, and fourth game. But the third game and fourth game were decided on knife edge situations. I think we were 3K up in game three, and they got a perfect engage out of the bush going into third or fourth Drake, where Sword Art had an insane engage covered by Nocturne. So they Nocturne altered, so we couldn't see, and then he had a good combo, and in fourth game, there were definitely situations like the Baron steal maybe kind of decided the game. But I think we've talked in the past about this, Matt, which is that if you want to play this early game style, each of your mistakes is going to be punished much, much harder than each of your outplays or the enemy team mistakes, right? And this is kind of something you have to accept if you want to play the early game style and have agency. If maybe in the third game, I felt that we had maybe 6 or 7 outplays and we had two mistakes, but because they were playing a scaling comp, it didn't matter, right? Like the value of our individual mistakes or their individual outplays was much larger. But that's a thing that I would like my team to continue to push, right? Like I feel that in North America, maybe in this region, we value a lot consistency and um, kind of long late game scaling. Whereas you look in Europe, you have who's the MVP of the league in Europe? It's Caps, right? And in Europe, they value this more aggressive style. And I think in order to be succeed internationally, it's not enough to just sit there and wait for the enemy team to mess up. You have to give yourself the agency. And although we've had a disappointing end to the split, going into next split, we will continue to play this style because I think that it's important coming into Worlds. And after what happened last year at Worlds, I don't want to go through that again. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting that you talk about all the counter picks you guys had prepared, because I think some of the most interesting aspects of the series today were the drafts, right? Like, it felt very much more than a chess game than it usually does. You know what I mean? It felt like, because TSM has, in my opinion, very clear parts of their team that you can effectively target with your first and second round of bans. For example, it's like, okay, do we want to put Impact in a really strong counter matchup, or do we want to take PoE off as counter mages in the first,
Yeah.
or control mages, excuse me, in the first round of drafts? What was the emphasis on the drafts like going in, and would you change the way you targeted certain players or try to get people ahead in these drafts, or would you keep it?
So I don't think game one could have been avoided. I mean, just we just didn't realize that Nocturne Rail worked like that. There's no way we could have prepped for that. I think I was happy with the drafts in games 2, 3, and 4. What I would say is that the adaptation TSM made in game 3 was that they targeted impact. So we were kind of targeting PoE and they were targeting impact. They took away impact's like 3 main carries. But Impact had actually quite a few carries that he had like up his sleeves. In fact, Sion, I think we barely scrimmed on Sion. We picked Sion in the first game because we knew they were going to pick Nocturne. So we wanted like to have a champion that's actually supposed to be good into Nocturne. And maybe we were a bit too adventurous. But definitely Impact had things, like the Wukong. In game 4, we were going until the last minute deciding whether we wanted to play Wukong or Aatrox, right? And because game 3 had gone so well with similar styles of comps, we just decided, okay, we'll pick the champion with the least amount of variance, which is Aatrox, even though it's maybe slightly losing normally into Camille. The champion is going to give us solid variance, whereas Wukong may be a bit more high variance, and we didn't feel we needed to introduce variance into the series. Maybe if this was against Cloud9 or something, we would have tried to introduce a bit more variance, because that's what you could do with your picks. But we definitely had kind of high variance picks. I'm really I really expected PoE to pick Lucian today. We had a couple of really good counter picks for his Lucian, but they decided not to pick it. So yeah, it was an interesting series. There's definitely things I think that teams will come into the series and look at. And the TSM coaching staff is a pretty strong coaching staff. They'll realize that if EG are going to ban Azir, Orianna, or against us, we need to find more picks going into next week, right? Because TF is not the answer, and I'm sure they've realized that themselves. But obviously, at the end of the day, maybe their picks were correct because they ended up winning the series and we didn't. So maybe we are the ones who should have made the adaptations ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Do you think TSM was as strong of an opponent as like a second seed should be?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of things in North America that split. I think you're seeing a transition split, right, in North America. There's a lot of players who've retired. People like Double Lift, people like Bjergsen, who were like titans of the region, and you're kind of seeing the new generation come up. So actually, I think this may seem a bit weird to say, but I think that NA is. So I know last year was a bit rough going into Worlds, but I think that this year is kind of a transition year, and you're going to see North America being a lot stronger coming in to 2022, which is in North America. I think that a lot of teams have their 2-year plans. Sure, going to Worlds in China is really great, but you can see from the number of teams that are using this year as a development year, the year that people are really, really looking at is making sure that you're at Worlds in 2022. And maybe that's meant that the average quality hasn't been as strong because there's been a lot of roster changes. There's been a lot more kind of developmental programs being brought into the league. Yeah, and I guess that makes it even more disappointing that we ended up the season in 6th, because we should just be better than this. And as a coaching staff, there's one of 4 reasons you lose a series, right? Either the other team is smashing you, and you're just like the quality is too high, the golfing quality is too high, which I don't think was the case today. The patch was bad. I don't think this was an insane patch for EG, but I think the patch was pretty good. It wasn't like next patch with Akali and Volibear. Oh, that would have been a good patch to play on. But this isn't a bad patch. This isn't a bad patch. So we can't complain about that. Was it our players? No. I mean, our players played pretty well today. They had individually strong performances. So at the end of the day, then it has to come down to prep. And as coaching staff, we have to take the blame for that, right? Sure, we had a rough season, but we had 2 weeks to prepare things. And obviously as head coach, I had to take responsibility for this, right? Like there have been definitely been some things that I've learned coming to North America that have maybe surprised me. But I'm still learning how to adapt to this region. And definitely we will have some streamlining of our processes, and we'll be back in summer because frankly, this is sure we made playoffs, right? But like this is a performance that nobody on EG is happy with, not the staff, not the players, and not me. So going into summer, we'll have more. I have more time with the players. I have a preseason boot camp, and we'll kind of fix these issues.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of those, the streamlining that development into the summer, how do you, as a coaching staff, how do you work through initially that rough loss in the playoffs, and how do you take that and transition effectively into a summer split, which is going to be even longer and have more stakes riding on it? How do you start to gear up your players for that?
I mean, what I would say is every single player on my roster has gone to Worlds, right? Definitely, people often forget. Definitely was at Worlds with Cloud9, right? He's has a 100% win rate at Worlds. He won his one game that he got to play as a sub for Sneaky. But all of these players have gone to Worlds. Some of them went last year. I mean, Impact was there last year, and Ignar was there last year. And they know what a Worlds in China is like. There's something special about the World Championships in China because of how mainstream League of Legends is there, and the fact that. Yeah, because of how mainstream League of Legends is in China, it's completely different to having a Worlds in Europe or in North America. Hopefully one day North America it will become as mainstream as that. But in China, you have players who wait outside your hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning. Mad Lions lost in the play-ins, and we were miserable and going home late on a late night plane, and there were people camping out for us even though we'd lost in play-ins at 2 a.m. in the morning at the airport, which is like an hour's drive out from town in the middle of nowhere, like 4 metro stations from the nearest residential area. And there were people there. Yeah, I mean, people like Chinese fans taking pictures, handing out presents, and things like this. And this kind of thing you see in conventional sports all the time.
Yeah.
But it's we weren't even doing well. We had a pretty bad tournament, but Kazi goes to the after we've been eliminated. Kazi goes to a major shopping center, and people are going around snapping pictures of him, asking him to sing for their TikTok videos or whatever they do because they know who these guys are, right? And going to a Worlds in China is always very, very special for that reason. It's just different, right? It's a mainstream thing. It makes a difference. So people are very, very that focuses a lot of minds. Definitely Ignar and Impact, a bit like me, felt that they didn't go as far as they could have last Worlds and were a bit disappointed. So they're obviously keen to focus minds. Jizuke is just passionate about everything. Jizuke gets frustrated even when we lose even when we lose a single best of 1 game, let alone a best of 5. He was pretty distraught after today. I thought he had a good performance, but there it is. And definitely, obviously, wants to find his way back. And obviously, Svenskeren has been around for years as well. So I don't think we need to focus on getting that motivation. It's just getting each other on the same page, right? And we've had. I think EG's biggest issue have been that we have all these veterans on our team. They all have really strong voices. They want to fight all the time. All of them, especially Impact to Jizuke. They want to fight all the time on their terms, right? And so you have a lot of contrasting viewpoints, and it takes time to build that synergy. They all want to go in, but they want to go in to different things, right? And often we've had situations this year where we've gone for Herald on a Herald play or gone for Drake, and we kill people on Drake, and then we just keep chasing, right? And this is something we need to fix. And it's definitely harder on a team full of veterans because there's no established hierarchy, right? So I think our issues are not that we don't know how to play the game, because in League of Legends there's always 2 things you can do, right? You can do a defensive play, or you can do a trade sides play if you're on the defensive, or you can do a map control play, or a tower play, or a neutral objective play, right? If you're on the offensive, if you have the tempo advantage. And we're sometimes all of our players understand these different concepts. It's just that sometimes one person wants to do an aggressive play, one person wants to do a fight play, and one person wants to do a trade play, right? And that's kind of, I think, our biggest issue this year. Getting them all on the same page is our main thing going into summer, because frankly, I don't think that this EG team, I I feel like we should be competing for Worlds. So thankfully, we haven't cost ourselves too much today. We just missed out on a chance of MSS, which is sad because it's in Iceland and Iceland's awesome. But we only start with a 2-game handicap and 45 games to go going into summer. So hopefully we can fix our issues.
Long season ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And which, just one last thing, how do you plan on spending like the break you have? Like, I imagine there's still going to be some work involved, but are you going to take time to yourself? Are you going to go anywhere, see anything?
So I'm having 3 days off. So there's 10 weeks until the start of the new season. Nine to 10. I don't think it's been formally announced, but somewhere, like, just judging on how things have worked in the past, it's between 9 to 10 weeks. The next 5 weeks I'm spending with Academy and Amateur, because Proving Ground Circuit starts on Monday, in fact. So that's going to be a really, really fun tournament. We'll go on for a week. Strongly recommend people who are interested in talent development in North America and want to watch the new guys coming up, because these are the guys who might be representing NA in 2022 in the home World Championships, right? So it's a good chance to spot some of those guys. So I'll be working with those guys for the next 5 weeks, then 3 days off, and then we're back into preseason boot camp. So woo. So yeah, no rest for the wicked, so they say. But yeah, definitely we have a lot of things to fix. And I hope my players can go back, have a good break, and come back into the next split fresh and with a renewed perspective on the game, because again, nobody's happy about today, and maybe hopefully they can use this disappointment to spur themselves on to greater things going into summer.
Of course. Once again, this is Evil Geniuses head coach Peter Dunn, and I'm Matt Tebow with Stacked. You can follow us on our socials at StackedLO, and you can find us online at stack.gg. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that sub button and like the video. It really helps us out a lot and gets us further into the algorithm, which is taking over everything, I think, in my life. Once again, Peter, thanks for your time. Thanks for talking to me, and good luck as you prepare for Amateur Academy and everything beyond that.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you.